We would like to make some observations on how drugs are systems that produce harmful effects on users. For the social environment, the drug trafficking phenomenon has been one of the most relevant problems in the world. For example, consider the millions of people who use these substances and the millions who work in the illegal industries that produce them. In addition, the circulation and use of illicit drugs have become one of the most serious problems in Latin America. We would like to briefly mention that Bolivia is the world's third largest producer of coca. The anti-drug policy in Bolivia has three lines of action: forced eradication, interdiction, and alternative development, and three types of consequence: militarization, violation of human rights, and social conflict. In general, the strategy to combat drug trafficking and reevaluation of the coca left, coca yes, cocaine no, was issued, with highlighting the coca left is its cultural and medical use. The Drug Enforcement Administration (DEA), the main U.S. anti-drug agency, were expelled on charge of conspiracy and interference. Bolivia approved the new policy strategy against drugs trafficking and reduction of surplus coca culture. It had three pillars: reduction of surplus of coca, and reduction of demand. To conclude, what Bolivia has done to issue of the coca left is important and pioneering, since it's opened the doors to rethinking international regulation of drugs.
I'd like to start by saying that over the years, Peru has had more problems with the issue of trafficking, production, and consumption of illegal substances. For that reason, this country has entered the radar of international institutions which recommended strongly measures against this scourge. To conclude, the worsening of consumption is only one aspect of a much larger phenomenon, since together with the production and marketing process of these substances have been consolidated.
We would like to make a few remarks concerning why is Mexico one of the most important countries when we are talking about drug trafficking in Latin America. Firstly, Mexico has a perfect geographic position for its drugs exportation interests and external countries' interests. Mexico is also the biggest country in Latin America and has a border with the United States. You know, the final destinations for many countries' traffic. Secondly, we can see a lot of violence in Mexico because of trafficking. This violence due to the cartels. Let me give you some examples. Cartel of Jalisco, Cartel of Guadalajara, or Cartel of Sinaloa. So let me conclude by saying that Mexico has been one of the worst problems in Latin America for those countries which want to face the drugs travel in Latin America.
Compared to the United States and its intervention and support to the countries of Latin America, it is important to emphasize the fact that a large part of drug produced reaches directly in the American country. For this reason, the United States government adopts certain measures to combat this problem. Continuing with the previous idea, over the years, more and more American citizens have fallen into addiction to this psychoactive substance, thus generating a serious public health problem in youth and adults. For this reason, institutions were created to mitigate the impact of drug trafficking on American citizens. An example of the intervention the United States has had in the Latin American continent is the creation of the Drug Enforcement Administration, or better known by this acronym DEA. Its work is to combat the trafficking, production, consumption of psychoactive substances, and also provide support to governments of Latin America.
Now to turn briefly to the drug situation in Colombia. First of all, we must bear in mind that this troublesome started with the green marijuana mix cultivated and consumed since 20s in Caribbean coast, Old Caldas, Valle del Cauca, and Antioquia. The next issue we would like to focus on is the violence and corruption derived from drug trafficking, due to the many careers of drug traffickers that run in parallel with many other criminal activities, for instance, the kidnapping, the documentary forgery, and theft, such as we can see in Marimbera Bonanza. On the other hand, it's quite clear that Colombia suffered an internal war within the business in 80s, the most active, violent, and enterprising generation in the Medellin, Valle del Cauca, and Caribbean coast cartels. Add that Colombia government and the United States took action establishing anti-drug policies, starting from the extradition treaty and the National Narcotics Institute. In the same timeline, it created the Commission of Notables to negotiate with narco-terrorists, considering all these efforts with the United States support that triggered in Plan Colombia, as we mentioned before. To conclude, we could say that 130,000 hectares were forcibly destroyed in Colombia in 2020. It means the most significant progress in the last 10 years.